Now, if you collect records for long enough, sooner or later you'll come across this problem, a record that's warped. Hi, I'm Andrew from Parlogram, and in this video I'm going to be testing a brand new vinyl flattener called the M2 from Whitebridge Technology. Sometimes it's only slight. Sometimes the edge lifts so much that the tone arm moves up and down as it plays. And occasionally you get records that are almost unplayable altogether. And the frustrating thing is that warping doesn't just affect cheap or damaged records. It can happen to valuable originals, modern audiophile pressings, records damaged by heat during shipping, or albums that have simply been stored badly over time. Over the years, there have been various ways people have tried to deal with this. For example, leaving records under heavy books, or sandwiching them between sheets of glass and putting them in the oven, which I personally would not recommend. And then there are dedicated vinyl flatteners like this one, which use controlled heat and pressure to gradually relax the vinyl back towards its original shape. But vinyl flatteners are also controversial, because while the idea sounds simple enough, there's always been concern that applying heat to a record could potentially damage the grooves themselves, if it's not done properly. So when Whitebridge contacted me and offered to send one of these units over for testing, I was interested, but also fairly cautious. Okay. First, you've got this rather nice package here. So these are the accessories, I suppose. These are two mats. This has an edge on it. I don't know if you can see that. It has a raised edge on it. So two 12-inch and two 10-inch. And these I think are to use when you're trying to flatten a record which is still in its shrink. So these go over the album cover. That's the quick start guide, and this one is the sort of more in-depth operating instructions and warranty card. Good. Lots of easy to follow pictures. Then we have the mains cable. This is a standard European mains cable because we're in Austria, and this part goes into the back of the machine. Next is this accessory here, which is actually made of a very heavy dark wood with a metal underside, and this is rubber, non-slip. It's surprisingly heavy. That is extremely heavy for its size. Do not cut with knife or scissors. Peel tape by hand. Improper operation may scratch product coating, so no knife. There we go. Not sure whether you can see or not, but it has this splashed paint textured finish here all over the top, which gives it quite a nice look. Okay, time to open it up. This looks like a protective foam mat. Plug it in and switch it on. And just for full disclosure, Whitebridge sent me this unit for testing, but they've had no input into the video or my conclusions. This particular model is called the M2. It's expected to launch around June this year through Kickstarter, with a projected price of around $699, or around $100 less for early backers. Over the past week, I've been putting it to the test on a range of records with different types of warps to see how well it actually works in practice, and more importantly, whether there are any obvious side effects afterwards. The M2 uses 4 different flattening modes: L, M, H, and U, low, medium, high, and ultra, depending on the severity of the warp and the type of record being treated. L mode is intended for slight warps, M and H for progressively more severe cases, while U is essentially an ultra setting reserved for records that haven't responded to the lower modes. Internally, the machine operates between roughly 54 and 59 degrees Celsius, depending on the selected setting and the record size. One thing Whitebridge strongly recommends is starting low and only increasing the temperature gradually if needed. In fact, the instructions specifically warn against jumping straight to U mode, because excessive heat could potentially damage the grooves. The process itself is fully automatic. Once the record is placed inside and the setting is selected, the machine handles the heating and cooling cycle on its own over several hours. There are also optional protective pads included for older or more fragile records, particularly ones without the raised groove guard around the edge. But the instructions say that it's not necessary to use them. Now, as you might expect, I have some Beatles records that need flattening. So first up is this Australian first pressing of With the Beatles. This rare gold label one has at some point in its life been subjected to some extreme heat, which has, among other issues, left it with a very uneven, rippled edge. And this is what happens when I try to play it. So let's put it in the M2 on 10 to 12 M, medium or standard mode, and see how we get on. Now this is a process you don't want to do if you're in a hurry, because the whole cycle takes 4 hours, 2 to heat and 2 to cool. So now the cycle has ended, let's take it to the turntable and see the results. Okay, it still has a slight uneven edge, but does it play? Well, yes it does, which I think is a very satisfactory outcome. Let's try something else. This is a UK first stereo pressing of Sgt. Pepper, which at first glance looks pristine on both sides, and there are barely any spindle trails around the centre holes. But put it on the turntable and you can see that it has a significant warp. However, unlike With the Beatles, it does play, but I want to make it flat, so let's put it into the M2 using the same setting and see how it does. 4 hours later, it's ready, so let's take a look to see if things have improved. Virtually 100% flat again, so that's another win for the M2. It can also handle 10 and 7-inch records, so let's give it a try on this copy of I Feel Fine, which at the moment looks and sounds like this. This time I'm going to use the protectors, because the disc doesn't have a raised edge. Although it's only a 7-inch, it still takes 4 hours. All we have to do now is change the settings to 7-inch. And to begin with, we'll stick to the standard temperature cycle. But let's see how the M2's done. Well, the warp is still there, and it still doesn't play. I tried again using the Ultra setting, but it still couldn't fix that edge warp. But now I want to give it a bigger challenge. This is a 1966 UK monopressing of Revolver, and as you can see, it's warped so badly there's no way I could even put the tone arm on it. Now the manual says that Ultra mode should not be used as the first option, so let's try with H or High mode and see how we get on. Okay, so this is what it looked like before I put it in the M2. And this is what it looks like now. I don't know about you, but I think that's very impressive. Let's see if it plays.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
Okay, it's not totally flat, and I could give it another cycle as the instructions suggest, which may improve it. But it plays, and that's something it wasn't anywhere near to doing before. So, that's the M2 vinyl flattener from Whitebridge Technology. Some records improved more than others, but overall I came away more impressed with it than I honestly expected to be. It's not perfect, but I don't believe any system for unwarping records is. But if you have a large collection or a business selling vinyl, I think it will be a good investment, and I think it does a good job. In fact, I think this is going to become, alongside my Loricraft record cleaning machine, an essential part of my vinyl setup. So thanks again to Whitebridge for sending it over. I'll put a link in the description if you'd like more information about the M2 and the upcoming Kickstarter launch. And do let me know in the comments if you've had experience with any other record flattening products, or whether this is something you could see yourself using in your own system. But that's all for this one, so I'll say bye for now, and thanks for watching.